All right, how are we getting audio now, ladies and gentlemen? If you're getting audio now, let me know in the chat room. There it is. You know, all you people on YouTube, it's about time I started living up to the YouTube credo, the YouTube manifesto. Smash that like button and hit subscribe. That's what you have to do in the world of YouTube. This is just I'm going to do the best I can with this episode. It's going to drive me batty. We have a brand new noise in here, and I'll be darned if I can figure out where it's coming from. It sounds like a fan to me, is what it sounds like. But I can't find any fans that are on in this juke joint. It's very strange. So we'll probably have to wind up re-recording this whole thing, which is exactly what I wanted to do with my week. Absolutely want to do that with my week. Can't find it though. You guys, this blank stare thing. Now remember, if you want to skip all this chit chat, you can just go to the zeros and get right in on everything. We did introduce a new mic setup, but the mic setup shouldn't do this. Can't figure out what's going on. Hold on, I'm gonna use my human ears. One sec. It probably was not the carafe of tea. I'm going to go ahead and... Nope, it was not the carafe of tea. Great, so it's going to be very hot, sweaty in here in the 30 minutes I have to read for you. And then a real girl's going to come in. We're going to talk about Aliens Romulus and the difficulty of maintaining continuity across 45 years in a beloved franchise. Tonight, a live read episode Slay 74, The Final Nightmare, the conclusion to Slay Season 2. This is our season finale. Next episode is Slay episode 75, which is a Q&A. Will be focused only on Slay topics. So get your questions into info@emptyset. If you've not got them in through that channel, can't guarantee they're going to be read. Then, after that, 2 weeks from now, we'll have Slay episode 76. Might be more general questions about the Siglerverse and that have come in, including also things that are Slay related. So it's going to be all over the place. Starting September 12th, we're going to have short horror stories that will go into my next anthology, Death is Black, the 4th installment in our color series. And you got some banger stories in there. And you guys, this is exciting. Some of them are going to be read by Ariel Girl herself, who may even read them live on this podcast, but she's not entirely sure if she wants to do that just yet. It might not be her bag, baby. And of course, after we get done with this reading, we're going to talk about Aliens Romulus and the difficulty of writing something big and fat in a franchise. It's going to be great. So let's see. Pardon me. Looks like we got everybody. I got the burps. It's great. It's really professional. Really professional. Got the burps. All right, you guys. We're clearly missing a lot of people. The usual fan base, but there's nothing I can do about that because, ladies and gentlemen, it is story time. We got stories to tell. Let's get into it. Tighten this up right here. Okay, gang, here we go. The season finale of Slay Season 2. We are rolling. No, I got to check that. Sorry. Hold tight, everybody. Here we go. We're rolling for sure. And previously on Slay, when Kellius Droman died, his age suppression spell on Delilah evaporated. She went from 13 years old to 22 years old almost instantly. While she will inherit her father's empire, she's angry and bitter at his manipulation. Only one person in the world knows the pain of being unknowingly magically modified by a person who is supposed to love you and protect you. Billy Middleton, whose powers and true physical form were hidden from him by his grandmother. Delilah's nightmare-generating powers are stronger than anyone could have known. The last person to find that out the hard way was Teddy Two Fingers, who now lies catatonic in a Bastion cell. Meanwhile, Lincoln Franks, the man in gray, left Callista's club in Lumencia, saying there was something he needed to destroy. What is his target? Find out next on the season finale of Slay Season 2. Haimana burned. Flames danced up from her writhing body, living pillars of orange and red and yellow that kissed off the ceiling above. Billy smelled her burning flesh. Through the flames, he could see her mouth moving, begging him to stop. But he couldn't stop. He had to watch as the hungry heat ate her alive. Then the flames died down. Cool air filled the room. Shadows spread from the corners, the blackness just as alive as the fire it extinguished with a long hiss. The room where Haimana and Droman had died vanished. Billy found himself on his bed. But it wasn't his bed. Not really. His room, but it wasn't his room. There were no walls, just the blackness of space and stars. Millions of stars. A shadow passed in front of those points of light, blocking them. A ghostly figure of darkness that came closer and closer and closer. That shape took form. A person. Black jeans, a leather jacket as black as space itself, made from space itself. Blonde hair that blazed like distant stars done up in tight cornrows. Eye makeup so dark it was almost a bandit's mask. Lips like red coal. Delilah Droman was not a little girl all dressed in pink anymore. "Hi, Walt. May I sit down?" This was some wild-ass shit. "Am I just dreaming this, or are you really here?" Delilah shrugged. "Both, I guess. You said when I needed to talk, I could talk to you." Some seriously wild-ass shit. "I remember. I guess I was thinking more like video games and a 2-liter of Fizzo, you know?" She said nothing. So beautiful. He realized she was waiting for him, waiting for permission. Like a vampire waiting to be invited in? Now, why would he have that thought? He sat up, realized he was wearing his white armor. A stab of anxiety. Oh, good, he was wearing pants. No, not pants. A Smurfs onesie. Dream clothes were weird. Well, at least the onesie fit. He patted the bed. "Have a seat." Space Delilah sat. "I take it this is your power," Billy said. "Visiting other people's dreams?" Delilah shrugged again. "One of them, I suppose. Turns out I can do lots of things. Not all of them good." She sniffed, glanced up. "I did some bad stuff, Walt. Real bad. I thought I was a good person, but it turns out I'm not." With what she'd been through, that was an idiotic way to feel. As soon as Billy had that thought, though, he realized Magda must have had a similar thought when she was talking to him on the couch. Seeing Delilah full of guilt and remorse showed Billy the other side of things. "Okay, maybe you did some bad stuff," he said. "So did I." She turned her head, looked at him with her emerald green eyes. "You mean Haimana?" Billy nodded. "Fuck that bitch," Delilah said. "You should have made it last longer. She should still be burning." Her voice sounded like rusty nails. So much rage in her. That, too, was breathtaking. Billy chased the thought away. He was going to have to work on this whole dark side of the Force thing. Work on it a lot. I didn't mean to kill her, Billy said. Did you mean to break Teddy the way you did? Her shoulders sagged. I don't know, she said. I didn't not want to break him. I don't know if I meant it or not, or if it was an accident. You know? Billy nodded. Yeah, I know. It ain't like he didn't have it coming, though. It ain't like he didn't have it coming, D. When you're fighting for your life, you have to use all you got. Jesus. Now he was quoting Magda. Crazy how fast things could change when the shoe was on the other foot. That's what I did anyway. Delilah tugged at the sleeve of her coat. But you were fighting, Haimana, she said. Teddy was down. I'd beaten him. I didn't have to punish him the way I did. And it's not just him. It's the other kids. I could have taken their gaunts off right away. I didn't. I left the gaunts on, used them to control the kids. I controlled them like puppets. Well, that was some seriously heavy shit. Those feelings, on top of what she'd been through with the whole Foreman thing. You and I are going to need some therapy, Billy said. I mean, a lot of therapy. Delilah let out a small laugh. It was like music. D, I'm really sorry about your dad, Billy said. Both for him being dead and for what he did to you. It wasn't right. She sniffed, nodded her head. Thanks, she said, for both things. I got a whole new set of problems now, what with being a billionaire orphan and all. In the cell block, her makeup had been a mess, smeared by the hood they'd pulled over her head, diluted by tears. Now, though, the heavy eyeshadow and mascara, the long lashes, the matte red lips, it all looked cleaner, neater. Delilah was gorgeous. And more than just a little scary. This is a good look for you, Billy said. This for the dreams only? Or do you look like... This for the dreams only? Or do you look this fit in real life? She grinned. Do you think I look sexy? He turned away, embarrassed. I ain't no creeper hitting on no little girl. She touched his face. Her hand felt warm, soft. She made him look at her. I'm not a little girl, she said. I never was. Not really. I'm 22. I am a woman. How strange it was. She'd been his friend, but she had been his friend, but he'd had zero attraction to her. Absolutely zero. Now, the same person, the same face, but different in ways he couldn't put his finger on. This is going to take some getting used to, he said. She sighed and nodded. For you and me both. It's so weird. Was it weird for you when you changed? Billy laughed, was surprised to hear that sound come out of his mouth. Was it weird for me to go from being 5'6" and $120 to having this Wakanda warrior body? Weird for me to go from the guy bullies beat up to the guy who beats up bullies? Weird to suddenly have all this power? Yeah, D, it was weird. It's still weird. She smiled. D, no one's ever called me that before. I think I like it, Walt. It was at that moment Billy realized he was in trouble. A fuckload of trouble. And a kind of trouble he had never known before. Because it was at that moment his heart stopped thinking of Delilah Droman as just a friend. Walt isn't my real name. It's Billy. Billy Middleton. There's a bad guy out there by the name of Bastion. Supposed to be really powerful, like even more powerful than your dad was. Bastion is looking for me. That's why Lincoln everyone calls me Walt. Delilah frowned. Why is he after you? Got something to do with my power, I guess, Billy said. My grandma says Vestinian wants me dead. He wants you dead? If he's so powerful and he wants you dead, why are you telling me your real name? Especially when I know about the old stone church. Why not just let me believe you are Walt? Her question did make him think. Her question did make him think he had. Her question made him wish he had thought things through a little bit first. But maybe he was just like Link. Maybe strategy wasn't Billy's strong point. But none of that mattered. She needed to know who he was. She needed someone to trust. And was there any better way to earn trust than by giving trust first? I told you because you've been lied to enough, and by too many people, Billy said. I guess you should know there's at least one person in the world who will never lie to you. I think you deserve that. And I think you're worth the risk. She fell quiet. Billy waited. Does Lincoln know your real name? Does Morgan? Did my dad? Billy nodded. The only one who didn't know was you. Your dad and Morgan both messed it up a few times when things got intense. But they had it cold for the most part. Delilah glanced off. Billy wondered what she was thinking. He wanted to know. He wanted to know everything about her. Thank you for telling me the truth, Delilah said, finally. I'll keep that truth in my heart, but for now, and for when we talk again, I'll keep calling you Walt. Is that cool? She took his safety seriously. That made him feel good. Made him feel like he'd made the right decision in telling her. Yeah, that's cool, Billy said. You said when we talk again. When do you think that'll be? What he wanted was to talk to Delilah tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. He felt a connection to her. He needed to talk to her. I don't know, Delilah said. Probably not for a while. I've got a lot to deal with, you know. It surprised Billy how much it hurt to hear those words, but he understood. I get you, he said. But if you need to talk more about what your dad did to you or about anything else, anything at all, looks like you know how to find me. She nodded. I do. So, with this Vestinian guy after you, are you going to leave the old stone church? Go on the run or something? He hadn't even considered that. How strange. Lincoln needed help getting Sam off the shelf. Billy would give that help, and he would stick it out as long as it took. This church is my home, Billy said. Lincoln and Magda are my family. I'm sticking with them. That made Delilah smile again. A smile like a light in the darkness. I'll see you around, she said. Look out for Lincoln for me, okay? That Billy would do. All day, every day. You know it, he said. Watch your back, Dee. It's rough out there for a billionaire orphan. She floated up more than she stood, her jacket merging with the infinite blackness of space. Billy sensed the power within her. Here, in the land of dreams, Delilah Droman wasn't just a girl. She wasn't just a woman. She was a god in waiting. See you around, Walt. And don't worry about that awful Haimana dream. You'll never have it again. Sleep well. She floated away, spread out to become the star-spacked heavens themselves, and as she did, Billy felt slumber drag him down. He succumbed into its siren call. He slept, and he did not dream. Coughing up water, his muscles burning, Shane swam into the tall waves, struggling to get past them, fighting to reach his dog. The husky's front paws slapped weakly against the water. Her tongue lolled out of her open mouth. He could hear her desperate, exhausted breaths. She slipped beneath the surface. Fear consumed Shane. He swam harder, kicked harder. He reached the spot, dove beneath the surface, reached, and yes, he had her collar. Shane kicked for the surface, saw the dusk light playing off the water above him. Then he felt pain, the sharp crunch of something smashing down on his hand. She had bitten him, and she wasn't letting go. Shane screamed in alarm. Water poured into his mouth. He tried to spit it out, but he had no air in his lungs. He sank deeper, pulled by his dog's weight. The black nothing. A realm of dread. The place of forever terror, of pure punishment. She had done this to him. The foreman. Nightmare after nightmare after nightmare, lost in the total reality of each one, never for a moment realizing it was just a dream. Only when each nightmare ended did he realize what had happened. And that realization lasted for only a moment, because the foreman had built him a personal hell. Because in that moment, he understood he was about to dream again, and he would think it was real. And that knowledge, the foreman's parting gift, was the most terrifying instant of all. An instant Shane suffered over and over and over again. Trying to scream in a realm that did not exist, he felt himself slipping into the next nightmare, the last of the never-ending cycle, and the worst dream of them all. Shane saw the black car coming down the long driveway. He didn't understand. It was his birthday. Where were his presents? Where was his cake? Little suitcase in hand, standing at the base of the big stairs, Shane looked up to the porch, where his mother stood, a parasol on her shoulder to block the summer sun. "Mama," Shane said, "I don't want to go." She didn't seem to hear him. She stared off like she always did. The black car came closer. Why was this happening? What had he done wrong? He'd been a bad boy, that's what, but he didn't know exactly what he'd done. "Mama, I'm sorry," Shane said. "I'm real sorry. What did I do? Please don't make me go. Please. I don't want to go." The woman at the top of the stairs finally heard him, finally looked down at him. She had ghost eyes, doll's eyes. "You're too spoiled," she said. "Time for you to learn how to make it on your own." The black car slowed, pulled up to the steps. Shane could barely breathe. This wasn't happening. She was punishing him, that was all, making him scared. She'd been doing that lately, more and more. Hitting him, hurting him, making him scared. The black car stopped. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out. A man wearing a brimmed hat and a black leather jacket. Shane started crying, pushed words out through the sobs. "Please, Mama, don't let him take me. I don't want to go, Mama. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Don't make me go, Mama, please." The woman at the top of the stairs lowered her parasol. She closed it. The blank doll eyes stared down. "Don't call me that," she said. "I'm not your mother anymore." Shane heard the footsteps of the man in the hat, heard them stop right behind him. A big hand landed on Shane's little shoulder. A strong hand. A hand that could not be denied. "Come on, little guy," the man said. "Come with me." The woman at the top of the stairs turned and walked into the house. Shane's insides melted. He didn't know what to do. "I said, come on." The hand that could not be denied guided Shane to the car. Shane was aware of his tears. He was aware of the snot running out of his nose. He was aware of the car door opening, him being picked up and put inside, aware of the seatbelt clicking down on his lap. He was aware of the man with the hat getting in the driver's seat. The man shut the door, then turned and looked back. Shane heard the creak of his leather jacket as he did. "I know this is rough," the man said. "Sorry you gotta go through this, but I want you to understand, this is happening, whether you want it to or not. You be a good little boy, and I'll get you where you're going without any trouble. All right?" A good boy? But Shane wasn't a good boy. If he was, why was Mama sending him away? "All right?" The word snapped out like a slamming door. Shane nodded, quick and hard. "Good," the man with the hat said. "Now, she told you your name. What is it?" Shane blinked, not understanding. My name is Shane Hoffman, sir. I'm 7. It's my birthday today." A sneer twisted the man's lips. He mouthed words that Shane didn't understand then, but later in life, he would remember how the man's lips moved, remember the way the man had silently said, "His fucking birthday, for fuck's sake." "Well, that's not your name anymore," the man with the hat said. "I know she told you. Tell me what your name is, or you're going to get a spanking." A spanking? Shane didn't want that. Not at all, especially not from a stranger so big. "My name is Theodore," Shane said. "Theodore He fought to remember the word. Then he had it. "Trevino. Theodore Trevino." The man with the hat nodded. "Good job," he said. "That's your name from now on. I'll call you Teddy. You just forget that other name, because if you say it, ever, I'm going to find you, and I'm going to hurt you. Understand?" Shane nodded hard and fast. "Good," the man said. He faced forward, started the car, and pulled away from the house. Shane, or rather Teddy, looked out his window up at the house, hoping to see his mother on the porch, rushing out to get him, but she wasn't there. The car drove along the driveway, taking Teddy away, taking him to St. Joseph's Orphanage in Burlington, Vermont. Stone-tipped club in hand, the hulking troglodyte slipped through the alley's darkness. Silent as a shadow, the man in gray followed. The troglodyte was unaware. Blissfully so, perhaps. He moved well for such a big creature, striding in the night as if born to it. But that was no shock. Monsters were born to the night. They were one and the same with it. The man in gray watched his target reach a battered metal door under a dim streetlight. The troglodyte went through the door, closed it behind him. This was it. Inside that building was where the man in gray would commence to killing. Did he want this kill? No, he did not. Not in the least. But what choice did he have? His past accomplishments counted for nothing now. He had to prove himself anew. The man in gray moved to the door, so silent he almost drifted. God, but did he love the darkness. He loved the way it melded with his cloak, the the way leather and lack of light merged like two dancers moving in unison, caressing each other, pulling and pushing, teasing and promising. The man in gray was the night, and the night was the man in gray. He reached the door. It wasn't locked. He slid through, gently shut it behind him. Was he afraid? Yes, he was. The monster he would soon face was the greatest that had ever stood before him. This beast seemed an immortal thing, unbeatable, unassailable, all-powerful. But some dangers you faced, no matter how intimidating they might be, no matter how unlikely you were to defeat them. Some dangers you faced for family. Garish overhead lights lit up the hallway. Pieces of paper taped to the wall, moving slowly in the air conditioning's easy breath. Whatever messages might be on those pages, those messages weren't his business. His business lay through the open door, up ahead on his right. Through that door, he heard the low murmur of voices. Several voices. At least 6. No turning back. The man in gray moved forward. He stepped to the door, then through it. In the center of the room, a circle of monsters. Monsters seated on folding chairs. The troglodyte stood in the center of that circle. Heads turned. They all looked at Lincoln, some with fear, some with surprise, some with amazement. The man in gray didn't really see their faces. They were just there. They were part of this ordeal, part of this gauntlet. At the circle's far edge, the troglodyte sat, his stone axe on the floor under his chair, an empty seat on his right. The troglodyte rolled his massive shoulders, his lizard scales catching the overhead light. "Rixator, you have something to say?" Blazing hells. This was the hardest thing Lincoln had ever done. Ever. The only way out was through. He strode across the floor, ragged cloak flowing behind him. He turned, flapping the cloak aside, and he sat. 6 monster faces stared at him, waiting. Blazing hells. This had to be done. For Magda. For Billy. For Sophia. For his father. And for himself. And, most of all, for his son. "That's X, Rixator," Lincoln said. "Hello, my name is Lincoln, and I have a drinking problem." All right. Where's my chat at? There we go, guys. That is the end of Slay Season 2. He's not going to face the sex gnomes. Not just yet, anyways. All right, we're going to get a little air up in this bitch. Hey, doll. You were not ready for the episode? Hey. My girl is verklempt. Whew. Be right back, guys. Hold tight. There's a buzz in here. I'll tell you later. I have no idea. You told me already. What's that? You told me already. Oh, I did have my text. Okay. And it made things hot. Yes, it did. Okay. Probably have to turn. Can you turn the AC back on, Pumpkin? Great. We'll probably have to kill that fan. There we go, guys. Let's get back to life, back to reality. And my OBS. There we go. Now I can see myself seeing all of you. Slay Season 2 going away. Banner going away for the last time. Welcome to Scott Sigler Slices. Slices live, ladies and gentlemen, live. Now we got yet another new camera setup today, which should have absolutely nothing to do with that crazy noise I couldn't put my finger on. So we've got a new mic for A here. It's going to take us a minute to get things dialed in for you. Please be patient.
I wasn't ready, sir.
You weren't ready? Yes. Okay. So there you get comfortable. Let's get a little closer. And I had to get the keyboard set up. We tested this out earlier, but I forgot A needs to get at the keyboard. So.
Well, not really. You can manage that.
I'll manage that then. Whoop. There we go.
Oh. I'm a little bit clamped.
Yes, that hits home a little bit. I know.
I mean, really? The last fucking sentence? Like, what?
Okay. There we go. Let's see. I'll drop mine down. Oh, get mine right there.
Hey, Mama. My mother's in the chat room on Facebook.
Oh, it's so fun. I made you cry.
You did? I was ready for monsters. I was not ready for the I was not ready for that last sentence at all.
Okay, Maggie's got to get yours, and you have autofocus on again, which I can't seem to have aperture priority. There you are, and nope, white balance. Advanced. There. Now your autofocus is off. Okay.
And
let's check
I have headphones and I have a microphone. Both of those.
Yep. Turn off my autofocus too, and then we're just going to turn this a little bit. I think we just got to do this right. There we go. Look at that.
Yeah. There
Sexy,
we go.
Looking so good.
Sakes alive. Woo.
Okay. And now we'll do this. Gosh darn it. It does this every time. I don't know how to control that. All right, guys. Now it's time to get back to show time. There we go.
So before we go on to deep cuts, I would like to say congratulations to you and Rob. Like, I am right there with you. I'm right there. I am right there when you guys are. Well, I mean, I'm not sitting right there, but I'm around and I feel like I sort of know the stories. And then you write all the time, and that was gorgeous. I was not ready.
Thanks, babe. Glad you. I mean, I don't know if you enjoyed it or not.
I did.
You're crying.
It was special.
Oh, thanks.
That's like a really important moment for Lincoln.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. And we'll see how season 3 goes. Rob and I we're cooking up some stuff.
You guys are quite talented. I'm quite impressed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awkwardly, as I'm all verklempt by that wonderful last moment, I also, although Rob can't join us, this was the end of the story. So I brought champagne because the Siglers celebrate the wins.
Yes. Also, Rob, you made my wife cry. I hope you're proud of yourself. Mister.
Sirs and ma'ams, you guys did very well. Here, you take that. Oops, I hit the microphone.
That's all right.
But we're not recording yet.
Not yet.
Whew.
Not yet.
Wow. You guys, congratulations. I am rarely this surprised by, you guys do some crazy shit. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, there's no sex gnomes in this. I mean, it wasn't a sex gnome episode.
Well,
but,
exactly the reason that I am not often this surprised by a thing, because sex gnomes.
Yeah. So we're going to have a little bit of champagne to celebrate. And as she said, Rob's not here. Did you bring glasses up, Pumpkin?
I did.
Good.
Here, I got to do this to give you room, though. Yeah, Rob's not here, but I will tell you that next week and the week next week on...
You got to snort that. You got to snort that top foam. That's how it goes.
Next week on Scott Sigler Slices, I think it's going to be Scott and Rob on screen doing the first Q&A of 2. There's going to be 2 Q&As. And the first Q&A is very Slay-centric.
D7, you're so sweet. Thank you, man.
There is there's a lot of questions already. If you guys have any questions specifically about Slay or anything in the Slay universe, or anything in the Slay universe that relates to the rest of the Sigler universe, but specifically about Slay, please let us know, because there is a pretty good amount of questions for Slay that I think Scott and Rob will be on screen. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll be on screen in the little window.
We'll probably have you downstairs in the little window.
Yeah. But
sometimes people do put baby in the corner. We're going to do that next week.
And that's the right answer, because you guys did an amazing job.
Thanks, Pumpkin.
Congratulations.
Thank you very
Robbie,
much.
I'm virtually toasting you and
Cheers,
your Mountain
Rob.
Dew, your Diet Mountain Dew.
Cheers, Robbie.
Which I also love. And then the following week, that's how I'm going to stage these questions. So if you have a question about the Siglerverse or about Empty Set or about Scott or about us or anything like that, that's not going to be next week. That is probably going to be the following week. But next week will be Robbie and Scott talking about Slay, the Slay universe, Slay 1, Slay 2, and their future as co-writers. So if you have any questions, please let me know. And if you guys want to have any other questions, that'll be the following week.
And babe, could you make a note? 4X is the one I forwarded you that text we got through the website, through the Shopify site.
Absolutely.
So we'll make a note on that. 4X got you covered. All right, let's get into it. That was not another 45-minute long episode.
Well done.
Thank you, babe. Thank you very much.
Robbie, well done. I'm so impressed.
Yeah, very.
If you have a story that is full of sex gnomes and cursing,
you don't expect that. Get that real.
You don't expect, sex gnomes, cursing, magic.
Yep.
And human bug hybrids. You kind of don't expect your own humanity to be challenged.
We'll talk about this more next week, but that's what I think Rob and I have captured here.
For sure. And
we're not, by no means are we the only urban fantasy authors addressing situations like this, but it's like a feint. It's like a fake jab to come in with the uppercut. You're brought in with all of this crazy, fun, wild, violent content, and these people partying down, having a great time, and that we gradually get you to really know them. And all these characters feel completely real to me at this point. And then you come in with, and we're subtly introducing the subtext of their problems. Mags has got big problems. Lincoln's got big problems. And then it delivers at the end. It hits home.
Oh, 100%. That's 100% true. But there's a difference between the characters feeling real, and I'm not going to talk about it. I think all of you, if you're right here, you've listened to Slay 1. So I will say that the ending of Slay 1, the last sentence of Slay Book 1 also surprised me. I wasn't ready for it. There were people who did anticipate that and who had sent in questions and kind of had anticipated that. But knowing that we were asking for Q&A questions, I didn't read them in case I got spoiled. And I was surprised by the last sentence of Slay Book 1. I was surprised as a reader at the end of Slay Book 1. I was surprised as a human being at the end of Slay Book 2.
Okay. Well, there you go. Let's get into the rest of the show. Obviously, you know what? My biggest fan really liked the story, so I did not have the best work day, but I'm having a great day now. How do you like that? You know what, guys, I had a great day. Made my wife cry. It's fantastic. Fantastic.
You and your BFF made your wife cry.
We did. All right. Schedule of the stank. First of all, let's go over the basics. I think everybody here knows all the stuff, but I'll turn that on in a second. Obviously, if you're not signed up for the text alerts, send SIG text one word to 855-955-5095. It will make you more virile in bed for sure. You can send your questions to info@emptyset.com. The things we want to hear from you right now are topics you would like to hear for deep cuts and, of course, questions for Slay and questions for the general Siglerverse. I got to get a newsletter out one of these days, but you should sign up for the newsletter too. And Steve the Iceberg, Ricky Berg's over there trying to work one of them newfangled social media things. Discord, scottsigler.com/Discord will take you right to it. If you're a Discord user, please sign up and participate. And finally, I am more active on Threads. I am almost non-active on Twitter these days, although I'm leaving it because someday he's going to sell it and I want to keep my handle. So there we go. And schedule of the stink. Sunday, August 18th, Slay episode 73, Payment Due went live in the feed. Tuesday, August 20th, Deep Cuts episode 12 went live in the feed. That was Tools of the Writing Trade. I enjoyed that one. That was quite a lot. Those are the tools that I use to create you guys stories all the time. Sunday, August 25th, tonight's episode goes live in the podcast feed. Wednesday, August 28th, Slay Q&A episode number 1. And Saturday, September 7th, Steve the Iceberg, Ricky Berg's Junkie Hang, ladies and gentlemen.
I love joining the Junkie Hang. My brother and sister-in-law, my brother's going to be in town, I think. Well, my brother and sister-in-law, I think, are going to be in town here, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to join.
Okay, so you guys are all on your own because I don't do that because I'm in your faces enough all of the time as it is. Okay, just talk a little bit, babe. I'm checking your volume.
I am talking a little bit, so you can check my volume.
Okay, I get a little bit more oomph when you talk when we do deep cuts.
Do not. Wait. give some more oomph.
Yeah,
No,
like
wait, no, not shadow, like, or not whisper, like give you some more oomph
Yeah.
right there, and then give you some more oomph if I'm looking at the camera.
Even a little more oomph.
A little more oomph.
That'll
Why
do.
is that? What are those? This is thumbs, but we keep. Oh,
Hey!
this is. If you guys are unfamiliar, this is an Apple OS feature that we
Yeah.
decided not
Hi,
to
Dorothy.
turn off because it's ridiculous.
How you doing?
Hey, Beth Copenhaver, nice to see you too.
I didn't get a chance to say hi to everybody. I was trying to track down that mystery sound.
Yeah.
So we'll figure that out later. You guys don't need to listen to our problems. You ready?
Yeah. Why don't you give me that bottle so that I can manage it because you're going to be doing the heavy lifting here. I'll put it on the
You got
little
it.
table over
Look-
here. Whoop.
Whoa.
That's what I wanted to do is take it away from the
Whoa. Almost smashed
from
my business.
all of the electronics and put it on
Thanks,
a
Pumpkin.
non-electronic thing over there. Yeah, so I think I'm ready now. I honestly
right.
was not ready for that. So, Whew. Okay.
Let me get this. Let's get it up. Let's get it up. Deep Cuts 13.
Give me a second.
Close.
I gotta before you do the. And I think you are the first line. You always.
Yeah, we'll get it right.
confused
We'll get it
about
right this
that.
time. Now remember, we're doing the new thing, so I got to read this carefully, you guys, because we're doing a new thing. Going to try what I'm calling a grabber. I'm sure there's another or a teaser in the radio business. Rob probably knows this. Come out and say a
Stinger.
thing.
A
to get-
stinger.
A stinger. Come out and say a thing to get people's attention. A stinger, I think, is music or like a canned thing. Say a thing to get people's. This is when it goes in the podcast.
Are you ready for it?
Say a thing, get your attention. Go to commercial. Come back and hopefully keep your attention through the commercial. So it is time for deep cuts. We record these as. What's happening?
I just want. I've got my timer, and I want you to make sure
Yes.
you start the.
We record these bonus episodes. If you guys got tap out now, go right ahead. You can catch this same conversation in the podcast feed. Subscribe at scottsigler.com/subscribe, which includes links for Spotify, podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. Yes?
Before we start, I also want to, before we start the live episode where we'll also repeat this, but in a much more formal way, if you guys haven't seen Aliens Romulus and you don't want to be spoiled, I want to make sure you guys know that you should close out now. And this episode that we're about to record will go into the feed next Tuesday. And we're going to repeat this actually in the live
Yeah,
episode,
for
but
sure.
I'm giving you guys the heads up because I was a little frazzled by the end. And in case anybody else was frazzled by the end of that story, I wanted to let you know now is the time you should drop off if you don't want to be spoiled. If you're like Mr. Happy, Chris Grawl, our good friend, and don't care about being spoiled, just come on in
Come
and
on
enjoy
in.
the water. Yeah,
16 minutes. You ready?
I am ready. Is it
Okay, here
now?
we go. And we are recording. Say something so I make sure you see recording.
Saying something.
Lovely. Wait a minute. Look, I got a burp.
Oh, good.
Don't start the recording until champagne burps.
I don't start the recording. You do. What? It's
Oh,
giving
I
us
start.
a strange
I
thumbs up.
started the recording. Oh my, Sean went and watched Romulus. Okay, ready,
We
babe?
love you. Mhm.
Start that timer now. So Aliens Romulus is out, and it's got to be easy to write an Aliens script. Sorry, I wrote novel. So Aliens Romulus is out, and it's got to be so easy to write an alien screenplay that includes all the lore from this 45-year-old franchise and make everybody happy because it's just horror, right? No, this is not easy. There are many bosses. Did you read the TPS reports? Xenomorphs, black goo, precious directors who insist things go their way. There are barbarians at the gates, cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria.
Okay, FDO, calm down. Are you saying it's hard to make a great alien movie and keep the continuity for the franchise? And we're going to talk about this using Aliens Romulus as the example, which we saw on opening night.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to say.
Okay, awesome. We'll do exactly that in just a few seconds on this episode of Scott Sigler's Deep Slices. Oh,
Just do that whole line again.
I'm verklempt. Jesus. Awesome. We'll do exactly that in just a few moments on this episode of Scott Sigler Slices Deep Cuts.
And now here we go. Ready? Why don't you leave the fan on? We're just going to live with the noise. It's too fucking hot. Here we go. Hey, y'all. Welcome to Deep Cuts, the bonus episode of the Scott Sigler Slices fiction podcast, where a sci-fi author and an audiobook narrator discuss things and stuff in the world of writing and content creation. I am Scott Sigler, sci-fi horror author known far and wide as the future dark overlord.
And I am A.B. Sigler, audiobook narrator. And on this episode of Deep Cut... And I'm A.B. Sigler, audiobook narrator, and on this episode of Deep Cuts, we'll talk about how hard it is to write something new in a long-running series or franchise, giving our thoughts on Aliens Romulus as our main example.
A reminder that this is a bonus episode of the Scott Sigler Slices feed, not part of any particular tale. Listen if you like. We would love to have you, but there is nothing in this episode. You need to keep track of the stories. And spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about Aliens Romulus. If you haven't seen it, we're going to be spoiling all of the Aliens movies, so decide if you want to listen at your own risk.
All right, Scott Sigler, let's get into it.
Let's get into it. All right.
So we are going to, for us, I will start out, spoil our experience at the beginning and say, for different reasons, we both really enjoyed our experience watching this movie. I will also spoil this and tell you that I went into this movie thinking I'll love it because I don't know and love this canon nearly as well as Scott does. Because as you all know, and if you don't know, Scott wrote a canon novel called Aliens Phalanx, which chronologically in the Alien canon comes very first in the Alien canon chronologically. And so I thought, he knows this whole chronology so well. He knows this whole timeline, that all of the things that happen in this universe so well. And as a creator, has loved and been influenced by this specific lore for literal decades, for 40 years. I thought, I'm going to love this, and this poor man is going to suffer through this. And we went with good friends of ours, so I thought he's going to have to not only suffer through it, but also keep up appearances. And what were your thoughts?
I was blown away by the movie. I loved it a ton. It is, at this point, having watched Aliens in the theaters with Dr. Daniel Baker, PhD, back in high school, and having it be the most influential piece of art, the most influential work on my particular art, I have a lot of feelings toward the Alien franchise. So now what I've learned to do is try to evaluate the movie both in the context of the whole franchise and the history, and also as its own individual encapsulated film, its own work of art. And as an individually encapsulated work of art, I thought Romulus was awesome and spectacular. It's one of the best thriller movies I've ever seen. It is more thriller than horror, in my opinion, although there was some great horror in it. To be fair, much of that horror I already knew was coming, because there's certain beats you have to hit in a 45-year-old franchise. There's things you absolutely have to do.
For sure.
But as a standalone movie by itself, fabulous, loved it.
Yeah, and for me, like I said, my expectations were lower. Like Mr. Happy, who is in the chat room, I don't mind being spoiled too much. I'd prefer not to, but I'm also okay. I'd still like to see how they get there. If I know the ending, I'd like to know how they get to the ending. And if I don't know the ending, it's even more fun. But I went in thinking, okay, I kind of don't know the lore as well. I'm not even sure I've seen all the movies, although I think I have, except for maybe Prometheus. And I also absolutely loved this movie. It was fun. It was rollicking. I will say, without talking about spoilers for anything but the Aliens universe, I will say I think this movie in its franchise did a far better job of staying within the franchise and up-leveling the franchise than the last movie we saw together, which was Deadpool and Wolverine. And that is to be expected. There is no breaking the fourth wall in this movie. This is absolutely an encapsulated story, so that's totally to be expected. But I think this did a much better job of honoring the legacy lore and giving novel audiences who this is their first alien experience a beautiful experience.
So that's a good point. We're going to address a couple of comments in the chat room first. So those of you listening at home, we record these episodes live every Wednesday night. 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern at scottsigler.com at youtube.com/Scott Sigler, twitch.tv/Scott Sigler, and facebook.com/Scott Sigler. So if you're listening to this after the fact and you enjoy it, you want to join us and get your questions in the chat room, we would love to have you. A couple of comments in the chat room. Sean says, some of the characters irritated me, and I Monday morning quarterbacked most of their actions, but they died early. That's a very good point. The characters are largely window dressing in an Aliens movie. We really haven't any spectacular characters for a while, so they have to hit certain beats to make certain things happen. Rob Otto says, I enjoyed about the first 80% of it, but hated the end, and I'm upset about the ruining of the Aliens continuity by just a couple of lines near the beginning. Rob, there's more continuity ruining than I think you caught. I've been studying it up on it. I'm going to go see it again. But yes, I'm also taking that into consideration. One of the things we're going to be talking about in a minute is the heavy burden Fede Alvarez and his co-writer had to do, and who were their bosses? Who was telling these guys, no, you got to put this in. You absolutely have to. You can't put that in. I have worked in this franchise.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And I have been on the receiving end of the powers that be saying, no, you can't do that. I'm like, but it's super cool. You can't do it. But it's canonical. You can't do it. Make sure you put this part in too. So we're going to get to all that.
And I will say, while he's looking up his next thing, that this week is strange for us because we rarely leave the house. But this week, on Tuesday, we went to see a play. I won't tell you too much about it other than to say it was called Ms. Holmes and Miss Watson in Apartment 2B. And it is not a retelling of the Sherlock Holmes tale, but it is the Sherlock Holmes and Arthur Conan Doyle stories are relevant. And I'm quite familiar with them, and Scott is less familiar with them. And we had this same issue where canon mattered to me, and without the canon, Scott had a different experience.
Had a tough time with it.
Well, I think you enjoyed a lot of it, but yeah.
By itself, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. But sometimes canon matters, and sometimes canon enhances. And for me personally, I think canon would have probably enhanced my Aliens Romulus experience. Or Alien Romulus, I'm not sure which it is. Alien Romulus experience. But it didn't deter from my experience that I didn't know the canon nearly as well as Scott did. And the second thing I'll say is last night we weren't able to do this show because I got a birthday gift months ago to go see a concert. The band Squeeze, which was an 80s band, and obviously they only play when they play. So we went yesterday to see that. And that band formed 50 years ago this year. And so the idea of bringing all of their great hits to 2024 also sort of suffered because they don't want to do the same thing 50 years later, but they kind of have to for me.
Okay, yeah.
That kind of thing. And this movie, I think, tied quite a lot of the expectations of people going to see it together very well. And that is definitely to the credit of the producers and directors.
So what we're going to do, first of all, is both of us are going to talk about 3 things we loved from Romulus and 1 thing we did not like from Romulus. And then after that, we're going to go through the topic of this episode, which is the gentleman who primarily, the director and the screenwriter, the task given to them to try and please as many masters as possible in a franchise that is so bloated with other products side of the movies. We're going to go over it. It'll blow your mind how much stuff is actually in this franchise. So it's a challenging task. Hey, you give me 1 thing that you liked about this movie.
First and foremost, my favorite thing was that you don't need to know the whole franchise in and out and backwards. And you don't even need to know what the true fans, which I consider Scott to be, what their opinions are. You can go into this completely blind. I don't think you'd enjoy it as much as if you had watched Alien, the first movie.
Yeah, it'd be great. Good call.
But I do think you could go in and enjoy it as a thriller and a sci-fi movie and a space movie and get a goodly amount out of it. I think you'd enjoy it even better if you'd watched the first 2 movies. And from there, I think there's layers of joy that you had that I didn't get.
We'll talk about one of those right now. One of the things I liked was, again, you'll hear this many times in this episode, having worked in this franchise and done a canonical product in the Aliens franchise, I know how hard it is to come up with something new for one of the consistent tropes that are going to be included in every single iteration of this franchise. And the thing that just blew me out of the water was the 0G acid for blood. Acid for blood there's 2 things that mark the Aliens franchise and have made it an eternal thing in the horror world. That is chestburster. Well, 3. Face hugger. You can't take it off without killing them. If you don't take it off,
be clear. Without killing?
Without killing the host.
Okay.
You can't take the face hugger off of the host without killing the host. They establish that repeatedly. Once the egg is inside you, It is going to hatch out of you. It is going to kill you. That is the cancer-driven drama of the whole franchise. And then you can't kill these creatures because they got acid for blood and everybody's in a spaceship. It's going to screw everything up. They found a way to do something new with the acid for blood, which is, again, you can't shoot the xenomorphs because their acid will rip through your hull and everyone will die unless it's in 0G. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the most, I was on the edge of my seat. It blew me out of the water. The floating acid hanging out in 0G, and they had established their version of 0G. They'd established their magic system. This is how it all works. Didn't see it coming at all.
Oh, I was going to ask you. It surprised you.
It not only surprised me, I was like, the rest of this movie can suck a bunch of donkey dicks. I'm probably going to like it anyways, because as a technician, as someone who's worked in the space to try and find ways to delight audiences who already know everything about it and give them some new bit of flavor, which I did in Aliens Phalanx, watching someone put that same level of work in with the acid was just amazing. I thought it was great. What else did you like about it?
So my second thing, and I put these in order.
Okay.
I think all three are important. He only asked me for three. And then one thing I didn't like. My second thing is I'm a true blue, dyed-in-the-wool practical effects girly. I think it has to do with my age and having to watch as CGI grew into its adulthood. But I'm a huge practical effects fan. And I know with certainty, and then I looked it up after the fact, did quite a huge amount of practical effects where they could. And one of the things that does for this movie is give it what I'll call the mouth feel, but it's really the visual feel. It feels, if you watched the Alien movies at any point other than in 2024 to prepare to watch Aliens Romulus, it feels like the world you were watching, because they did that on purpose, and they did that with acid blood burns. They did that with the juvenile aliens. They did that with pods. They did that with face huggers. They built real physical practical effects. They had a young actor in a juvenile alien suit doing that, things like that.
Oh, did they? I didn't know that.
Strings, yeah, practical effects.
Yeah.
And I think that adds so much in so many ways. I always think a practical effect makes it feel real to a human on a way that we don't necessarily understand.
Right.
But in this movie, it also harkened back to the early effects.
It really did. You're right. It really put in touch with it. My second thing I really, really liked was, I've mentioned that this is a great thriller because of the pacing and the overlapping arcs of tension. It was very Cameron-esque in its presentation. It felt like Aliens and the constantly overlapping arcs of tension. You never really got a chance to relax. And the thing that really brought that home to me was the Saturn rings. The rings of the planet, they did so many things with it. I've never seen anyone actually use planetary rings as part of the suspense, as part of the plot, as part of the final sequence. And I was fucking breathless. I just was, I was like,
because it's a
I was
time
like,
lock.
these pimps. They had a time lock.
Time lock.
It was a time lock.
I didn't
it was
realize
an
that
option
until
lock.
just now.
And the visual spectacle of the rings themselves, being a science nerd, being a space kid, all of these things, I just was like, I was tipping my hat before I even left the theater. Again, with the acid and the rings alone, the rest of it could have just been garbage. I wouldn't have cared. I'd been like, I'm going to go see it again. I got to see that again on the big screen. It was spectacular.
Should we do the third thing and then we'll come back after the break and do the thing we don't like?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. So my third thing is, I think, a little more esoteric, but I will repeat. I think it's worth repeating that I am not as versed in the lore as he is. I have seen the first two movies many times, and then this one, and I'm not exactly clear on the rest of them.
Okay.
But the thing that I really loved in these there are several very specific callbacks to the first two movies. There are visual callbacks with the alien and the main female character. There are scenic callbacks of the alien right. I don't know how to do this so you can see, like the alien right by the female character, the main female character's face. There are a few things like that I really think were very powerful.
The callback to Aliens 3. Is that what you're talking about?
No, is that where Ripley?
Yes.
Yeah, to that one, which is so iconic. If you look up Ripley, you see that. where the
Yep.
alien queen is right there by her face. And that's in this movie, spoiler alert. And so there are several things like that. But then, there's also it's not called the replicant, the science officer.
The android.
The android.
Ash.
The
Ash
android
was
is
fucking great.
Is great. But here's a thing that I noticed right away, and I'm not sure if you have even noticed it.
Okay.
In the first movie, the female main character, her name is Ripley. Mm-hmm. In this one, her name is Rain. And ripples in water are caused by rain. And
you think they did that on purpose?
I do,
Holy shit, that's great.
Because the science officer android in the first movie, his name is Ash.
Mm-hmm.
He is sent out for a special mission that nobody else knows about but him. And in this one, his name is Root.
Rook.
Root.
Rook.
Okay, well then maybe I'm wrong about that. I thought it was Root.
If it was Root, that would have been sweet, but it's Rook.
But Rain and Ripley and even Ash and Rook, like these ideas that there are callbacks to that first movie that are poetic.
Yeah.
They moved me.
That's
this
good.
idea that everything that's old is new again. And, you repeat that lesson until you learn it, I thought were very powerful.
In the chat room, Sean says, Rook, thematic connection to Bishop. Both of those were androids.
Yeah.
I don't think Andy was a chess piece, but it was wonderful.
But I loved those moments that even if it was just, and I know I might have been reaching because like I said, I don't know the Aliens universe nearly as well as Scott does, but even if it was just the R and R names, the Rain and Ripley names, I loved that moment that they're both females. I love that moment.
We'll go to commercial.
The last thing that I'll say is that both the main female characters had a thing that couldn't take care of themselves that they wanted to take care of. And I won't say any more than that.
Okay.
Was powerful for me.
Okay, you know what? Keep that in mind because that's a recurring theme in the Aliens franchise. And I hadn't thought about that.
Commercial break?
I do right after this. Tyler Miller in chat room says, I also enjoyed Rook. I think it won't hold up being surrounded by practical effects. I was enjoying a lot of the silhouette shapes, and then boom, his face. It grew on you, though. Real quick, this is not one of my 3 things I loved, but what a great use of a robotic character, of bringing back an actor from the dead. Obviously, he can't reprise that role. He's not with us anymore.
Of course, yeah.
But that is one of the grits. So when you start to look at AI use of characters and extensive CGI combinations, a thing like this is no harm, no foul. They're bringing an actual actor back from the past, and it because the way his face didn't look right and the uncanny valley fit in the milieu and in the storyline perfectly.
Well, and I'll also say that actor's name is Ian Holm. Ian Holm was a prolific and talented actor. He was wildly successful as an actor in many, many ways. He has an estate that manages his whole legacy. And this movie came and said, here's what we want to do. And they were like, yes, please do.
That's wonderful. I didn't know that.
I looked that up after the fact because I was like, I feel like Ian Holm's estate would have managed this very carefully. And they were like, yeah, we managed this very carefully. And they could do whatever they wanted.
It's so beautiful all the way around.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we will be right back after this. Okay, now you got a set timer for 20 minutes? Mm-hmm. Or 30. I got both of them right there. Here we go. Ready? Welcome back to Deep Cuts, where we talk about all things in the world of fiction writing and audiobook narration, and today, movies and long-running franchises, right?
Yep. Today we are chatting about the challenges of writing something new in a long-running franchise, as Scott said, and we are specifically talking about Aliens Romulus as our example.
And to dive into the negative part of this,
you
glowing
were
review.
supposed to tell me your third thing that you loved.
Oh, I was?
Yeah, there were 3 things that you loved. You only told me the 2.
Oh, shit. Well, we're not doing it now.
Okay.
So cut that part out.
You loved so many things, though.
I did love a lot. So now we move into the things that we did not like. Hey, why don't you go first with the one thing you didn't like, and I'll go next because the thing I didn't like dovetails into the whole topic of this episode.
Okay. So I will say this. I must say a spoiler ahead of time because we've sort of already touched on this in a very good way. The one thing I didn't like, the one thing that drew me out of the story was there was inconsistencies in the rule set in the movie universe.
Okay.
For the bottom layer of the Romulus base station with regard to the acid blood
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that there was space and vacuum on the other side of the bottom of the elevator shaft and the bottom layer of the. I thought for sure, and there are several instances of this, I thought for sure we would walk out of that theater and Scott would be biting the inside of his mouth to talk about it, and I was the only one who cared. And it was, in that regard, it was beautiful, but that was the thing that drew me out of the story.
Yeah. Well, there's a certain economy of attention and care and consideration that a director and a screenwriter put together. It's compact with the audience. And like, if you've given me 4 awesome fucking things, and then you need to do a 5th thing that doesn't line up all that well, but it's for a specific purpose, to do a particular heroic moment or to deliver a particular set of gravitas, I, as a moviegoer, I'm like, you know what? You gave me 4, I'll give you 1. Like, that's kind of, it's 4-to-1 ratio. They had to do that to deliver that line.
Oh, 100%.
And
I
that
get
was,
it.
I let slide. It was fine. So the thing I did not like was the continuity issues. And Rob Otto in the chat room and Chris Crawl in the chat room brought this up. So the thing that Rob Otto brought up is, hey, how did they get all these face huggers? How did they get this, there's no alien queen. So this takes a minute to explain. Ash, I'm going to call him Ash. Fuck Rook. It's Ash. Ash sent a message to Weyland-Yutani about the Plagiaris Priopotens, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, which our friend Alex White put into the franchise.
Yeah,
so
that
Alex
is a book
White,
you should read too.
Alex White wrote a book called The Cold Forge.
Mm-hmm.
And in that book, they decided they were going to work with 20th Century Fox. Like, I'm going to figure out how the actual biology works to explain all this crap. Plagiaris Praepotens is an Alex White creation. It is stuck in the franchise all the way through. So props to them. So this movie takes place in 2142. We're going to go over the timeline here in a second. Weyland-Yutani gets a message from Rook. Rook literally says, I sent them a message. They're expecting the ship. We have to assume if they have androids and things in space and can do all this great stuff and can go faster than light travel, they probably can send data along with a message. It's logical to assume they can send a couple of terabytes of data.
And
right?
also waypoints and other ships and way stations.
Right.
And yeah, of course. That's an easy
Here's
one.
where this gets interesting. In Romulus, the face huggers aren't taken from a queen. They aren't taken from eggs. They are engineered from the DNA or alien equivalent of DNA of Big Chap, the original monster from the original Ridley Scott film.
Mm-hmm.
So they are sequenced from Big Chap and they are printed. They are printed. So wait, they printed the face huggers. There were no eggs.
Wait
there
a minute.
was no
Do
queen.
we know for sure they printed them or they cloned them?
I looked it up. Well,
No, in the movie. I know you looked it up and that was what they were supposed to be doing. Because I thought that they had cloned them like shark babies. Because we've been to an aquarium where we see a shark egg sac where they're growing outside of a shark. So I thought they were cloned.
If you are right, I will buy you dinner. But I'm pretty sure, since I've looked it up, that the approach in the screenplay, that's why we have to see it again, is they printed them. Now, I'm not opposed to this because in my novel Ancestor, where they take a cow egg, inoculate it, which means take the actual baby cow out, they print a single cell embryo, eject that into the cow egg, then reimplant the cow egg into the cow, and the cow gestates, and the animal, and of course, Ancestor is heavily influenced by aliens. If you like Alien or Aliens, you will love Ancestor. So printing actual proteins and printing we can print proteins now. We can print DNA now. To a certain degree, not all that great. But in 30, 40, 50 years, 200 years, they should be able to print a good part of a living organism.
100%.
So if Rook is sending a message to Weyland-Yutani that the ship is on the way with all this great stuff in it, he's going to send the printing information for how to print face huggers, which means there's no queen needed. There's no xenomorphs, there's no ovomorphs needed. There's no eggs needed. None of this stuff. They never had any reason to send the colonists to LV-420. Shit, I forgot. I'm blanking out. LV-426. There was no reason to send the colonists to LV-426 to the ship to get that stuff because they can make. That's our dog.
That's our dog.
Our dog gets upset when we get upset.
And our dog also wants to complain that one of the reasons is that it might be cheaper and easier to just send slave women.
Yeah, it could be. That could be it. But the whole concept kind of breaks down. So I've done a little bit more thinking on this. Now it's possible, as A mentioned, it's cloning, or you need a certain collection of proteins. You need a certain amount of mass puzzle pieces with which to make the puzzle. You can't send puzzle pieces. So you can't send a protein bath. You can't send certain materials. You can't send these things through the internet. But overall, and this comes because, now we're on our topic, because Fede Alvarez and his co-screenwriter were trying so hard to fit all of this stuff into this 45-year-old franchise and please so many masters, please the studio, please the fans, please themselves. That there's going to be things that break down. It is inevitable. Things are going to break down when you put this much work into stuff. Yeah.
I think you should close that door so that we don't have a distraction again. And I will say I agree with you. This is one of the issues for me is there's a raw materials problem if you're printing. If you're printing protein, you need protein. Protein is easily, it could be a gestational human, whatever that looks like.
Yes. There could be cultures involved in replication and
AKA the Matrix, all of that stuff. It could be that, but it needs to be something, and you need to explain it, and that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So if it's just 3D printing, where does that matrix protein material come from?
Correct. What is your substrate matrix? I think you got it right. So now we're going to get into why I think Romulus is such an accomplishment. Because there's a couple ways you can go about making a movie like this. Some of the greatest directors of all time have done the Aliens movies. Ridley Scott, who's done 3. James Cameron, who is a personal huge influence on my artistic work. David Fincher, Jean-Pierre Jeunet, and then Ridley Scott again for Prometheus and Covenant, and now Fede Alvarez for Romulus. It doesn't count all the other stuff. Hopefully we'll have time to get to the whole...
But Fede Alvarez...
The multiple franchises. So when you hire people like this to do a movie, you let them do what they do. When Ridley Scott comes in, I want to do another Aliens movie. The studio goes, whatever the fuck you want, bro. Yes, come in and do that. He comes in with a completely different vision for Prometheus and completely changes everything, and no one can stop him. Now somebody like Fede comes in, right? Doesn't have the same pedigree. Didn't make the whole franchise happen. Fede's he's like, I'm going to do what I want to do. And then there's 20th Century Fox Disney nibbling, like, gotta have this, change this character, do this. He has to incorporate all of that stuff too.
Because that happened to you.
Yeah, can't tell people how things work.
They were like, hey, write a canon book. And he was like, cool, bet, let's do this.
Yep.
And they were like, how did you know all this? And you've talked about this before on this cast.
Yes.
How did you know all of this? And he was like, because I've watched these movies 87,000 times.
For those that haven't listened to this story before, I'll keep it very short. I wrote Aliens Phalanx, and having watched the movie Aliens 100 times at least, maybe 200 times, it is my Rosetta Stone of creativity. I know everything about that movie, and I got a chance to write a canonical novel that follows the biology only in Alien and Aliens. So I kind of explained how all of it worked with entomology experts, worked with Chris Krall's in the chat room right now, worked with experts on small unit combat, small unit communication.
You worked with biologists.
Everything, physicists, astrophysicists, all kinds of stuff. And I explained how everything works. Why do they have big heads? I told you. Why do they have this? I told you. And 20th
Why
century,
are there eggs? I told you.
20th Century Fox was like, where did you get all this stuff? I'm like, and I would chapter and verse, quote the timestamp of the movie. Here's the dialogue. Here's where it all is. And they were taken aback a little bit. And then they came back after they were initially very offended that I had the audacity to try and introduce things. They were like, okay, you know more about this shit than we do. So we're gonna need you to just not explain this, because if you explain everything, the storytellers who come after you have nowhere to go. We need the sense of mystery, which I had never thought of when I was being pedantic and explaining how it all works.
Exactly. And the only thing I'll correct there is when they came back, they said, why do you think of this, is what he said. What they actually came back with is, where did you get all this? Who told you? Why do you think this? Like, and then he was like, yeah, here's all the chapter and verse of this. And they were like, okay, we don't know it that well.
I literally got that email, and it was like something out of a late 80s movie. I literally sat down on my computer, laced my fingers, cracked my knuckles, and said, okay, here we go. And just spent a day on this email.
But I will point out, this was a very organic and growth moment in Empty Set and also you as a writer, because you as a fan completely knew all of that chapter and verse.
Yes.
And said, here's why I know all of this. This is the thing that everybody who is a fan like I am will love. And they were like, yeah, but everybody who's not, like, you want to keep some mystery. And you as a specifically as a writer who is very, I have an A thread, a B thread, a C thread, a D thread, an E thread.
Right.
We're like, oh.
It was a valuable lesson for me as a storyteller to realize they have, and this is back on topic specifically for this episode. 20th Century Fox and now Disney has a property that makes them money. The way they make money is by people going to movies, buying books, playing video games, buying DVDs or streaming, all of these other things they have. They have to keep new product coming out because in the basics of business, you put out a product is a product life cycle, the PLC. Product's only going to be out for so long and then it tapers off and you have to have other products in the life cycle. They are a business. They have to make things. If you constrain their ability to make widgets, they can't make as many widgets. Also, if you choke out everyone else's creativity, like this is exactly how it works and that is it, then it makes it difficult for other people to make products in that company.
And third, which is a thing we struggle with often, and a thing everybody who is a consumer of entertainment struggles with, the longevity of creativity and movies it now is evergreen.
Yeah.
And often you have probably thought to yourself, like, why are they remaking this? Let's just watch the original. But the original, say, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and I know what absolute blasphemy that is. That will not resonate with somebody born in 2024 because they won't watch that until they're 15, 16 years old. And that technology for that film will now be 70 years old. They won't ever watch that. So to give that story and that gift to everybody else, it must be remade or incorporated or updated or something. So doing that is also important, I think.
It is. You guys, we are showing everything is frozen here at Empty Set Studios. So in the chat room, can you tell me, are we frozen or are we moving about? Looks good. We look good. Also,
yeah,
we look gorgeous. Let's be honest.
I mean, you look gorgeous.
You look gorge. Okay, here we go. Sorry. Okay, snap back in. Chris Crawl in the chat room says, all of what Scott just said is why the Marvel universe is now struggling. They're a victim of their own canon. Really quickly, we'll talk about the other Disney example, and then we'll move back to Aliens, which is when Disney took over Star Wars. There was a massive FileMaker Pro database of all of the comics, games, cartoons, movies, everything in the Star Wars universe was tracked. And they were doing their best to keep it an actual universe where everything impacted everything else. And Disney was like, bro, fuck this shit. I can't have screenwriters reading 27 novels, watching 12 movies, watching TV shows to try and come up with a script that matches everything, and they just started over. So when you have something as old as Aliens, 45 years, it's eventually going to collapse on its own weight, and you have to let go of the reins and let people do their own thing with the source material.
And I will say very briefly, taking it out of any evergreen type of entertainment and just talking about human existence. We reinvent the wheel often. We reinvent religions. We reinvent food favorites. We reinvent what a pizza looks like. We do it over and over and over again. And not just because we want to keep every single human happy, but because we can have a split timeline like Back to the Future, but in hopefully a good way, right? It is impossible if I watched the original Star Wars in 1977 or the original Aliens in 1979
right,
to please me and somebody who was born today who will never watch an Aliens movie until they're 15.
Right.
That won't happen. You can't please both of us at the same time. It doesn't exist that way. Our whole existence is different. And for a person like me, I want it to look like Star Wars in 1977 or Alien in 1979. But for a person at the studio who wants that franchise to continue, they're like, cool, I appreciate that. You're going to hate these 17 movies, but there are these other people who will love it. And I will keep you at least for the beginning, and I will give you a bone here and there.
Yes.
And I keep trying to, for myself, I keep trying to keep that in my head and say, I want to be able to enjoy this with my nieces and nephews. And that means I have to be a little flexible. And I can't say, like, this is shit. Because they won't understand it and they'll think I'm an old fuddy-duddy.
Those of you listening at home, my co-author of the Slay series, Rob Otto, is in the chat room. He's watching tonight, and he cracks me up quite a bit. He's been dropping names for various Aliens movies. Aliens Widgets sounded like a good one. Aliens Product sounded good. Of course, his best, Aliens the Christmas Special at the North Pole. No one can hear you scream. All right, fabulous. So now let's get back to our topic at hand. We're going to say one quick thing here. Let me go to books. This, if you're watching tonight or listening at home, this is a wonderful article. It's at roguereviewer.wordpress.com. This is the gentleman who did the Aliens role-playing game. And this is, what is his name? Oh, E.C. Gaska. And E.C. consumed everything to make the Aliens role-playing game. So if you Google, quote, defining canon in an alien world, end quote, and then add Rogue Reviewer, one word together, you're going to find this article. It is mesmerizing because EC has broken down the Aliens continuity into 4 separate, completely separate timelines. The Tier 1 canon, which includes the film series, the Alien Isolation video game, which apparently I have to play. It looks great. There's a specific Twitter account listed, the Covenant short films, the Prometheus short films, and frankly, to me, this is a stretch. Trying to include Prometheus and Covenant in part of the timeline is ridiculous because they make no sense in the timeline. Then there's a Tier 2 canon, which is a bunch of other things, Aliens blueprint books. He's got all of the products covered. It is astonishing. A Tier 3 canon, which has Wayland Industries' viral website going back into the novelizations of the movies.
Wayland Industries.
Yep, but pre-Weyland-Yutani, pre-merger. And then a setup called Myths and Legends, and Aliens Phalanx is listed on here. I was quite pleased. But that is a wonderful place to look. Now, let's turn that off, and now let's work into Aliens Timeline. This is the subject we're talking about, is how to maintain continuity, or how hard is it to maintain continuity in something as old and storied as Aliens. So let's get rid of the books. Let's get rid of the games. Let's get rid of the amazing Dark Horse comics. Let's just throw that out. We're just straight sticking with the movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sticking with the movies. This is where things get crazy. On the screen.
Well, first let's say, if we're sticking with just the movies, we are talking about a 45-year time span.
Correct. Mm-hmm. So now we're going to go through, first we'll go through Aliens movies in release order. Aliens, 1979. Oh, so Alien, 79. Aliens, 86. Alien 3, 1992. Alien Resurrection, 97. Aliens vs. Predator, 2004. Aliens vs. Predator Requiem, 2007. Prometheus, 2012. Alien Covenant, 2017. And now, Breath of Fresh Air, Alien Romulus, 2024. When you look at it from the order they are made, introducing the Black Goo in 2012, when one of the most storied sci-fi horror directors of all time, Ridley Scott, comes back and can do whatever the F he wants because he's fucking Ridley Scott and would be no Alien without him. Sounds great. Sounds great, right?
Yeah,
let you go.
Yeah.
Let you go. Do you think,
Absolutely, kid? Objectively, it sounds great. And here's a very interesting thing to consider. If you are a movie studio, sounds great. Absolutely, come on in.
Yep.
But Ridley Scott, whatever that is, 20-something years later, is not the same Ridley Scott.
Correct.
He's not as hungry. He's not as, and I don't know Ridley Scott, I don't know anything about this, but like he's not as jaded. He's not as old. He doesn't wake up having slept funny on his neck. He is.
You mean the younger Ridley?
I'm saying greenlighting Ridley Scott in modern times seems like a no-brainer.
Correct.
But nobody thinks about all those things. Ridley Scott has lived his life, has aged his life, has done all these things, and that all influences what he wants to talk about. And what probably happens is people are saying, cool, Ridley Scott should come back and give us back Alien and Aliens and that thing,
right,
without considering, cool, he's now in his midlife, which is great.
Who's 70 when he directed this shit?
Okay, he's in his mid to late midlife. And that should be considered too, because the people who are going to watch this are people who are still 20-something years younger than him, and everybody who has never experienced aliens at all.
Yeah.
And that may or may not resonate.
And to your point, I believe that Prometheus and Covenant are a completely separate timeline. And kudos to Romulus for trying to bring this together. But as someone who creates things for a living, what Romulus did, even though it didn't do it well, and there are a lot of holes and sloppiness in it, is amazing. Amazing work to try and bring it all together. You can see it's the Rogue One of Aliens movies. They really tried to bring it all together.
But the Galaxy Quest did it well, right? Like tried to tie those sci-fi things together in a way that sort of makes sense.
Galaxy Quest
Galaxy
Quest kind of general, all of sci-fi. Star Trek core, but all of sci-fi. Whereas Rogue One is specifically Star Wars.
Agreed.
Premise. Now let's go back to the. Can't go back to the graphic. People listening home. So now what we are looking at, if you guys want to tune into our live cast, now we're looking at the alien timeline, not the chronological timeline, and this is where the bed gets shat upon.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, Aliens Earth is set in 2029. That is a 2025 show. I will be watching. I'm sure all of you will be watching as well. It's not out yet. We don't know the plot.
Would you mind, just because this is a Scott Sigler show,
Yep.
would you mind putting Phalanx in this timeline?
It's actually very difficult to do. You mentioned it earlier, and in the article I just listed, it's not listed in the specific timeline. It's just listed as one of the books. In Wikipedia, it's just one of the books. It's really hard to put in. But for those of you listening at home, Aliens Phalanx occurs after Alien Covenant, and by the looks of things, after Aliens 3 at least, and possibly after Alien Resurrection. So that is a huge
Phalanx?
Yes.
Okay.
I only wrote
You're right.
one book.
Yep.
So that is a huge spoiler. But
sorry,
guys,
you
go.
said Alien Resurrection, and I have not seen that, so I
Oh,
forgot
you
about
don't
it. Yeah.
want it is.
Well, that's why I haven't.
It
seen
is.
It. Yeah.
It is. What is the worst movie ever made in the world? It is the Eraserhead of fucking Aliens movies.
The Ishtar.
It is the Ishtar of Aliens movies. I hate it so goddamn much. I can't even say it. So
we will not speak of it again.
the Alien timeline, 2029, our time, Earth time, Alien Earth. We haven't watched it yet. 2093, Prometheus, where they don't know how astronomy works, and they don't know how breathing alien organisms works, and they don't know how oxygen works, and they don't.
I was going to say just breathing works.
They don't know how breathing works. They don't know how religion works. They don't know how fear works. They don't know what phobias are. They don't know how maps work.
Or
the
gravity.
guy who made the maps got lost because he didn't use the maps he made. It's spectacular. Moving on. Then 2104, Alien Covenant. And then 2122 is Alien. So our 1979 Alien is in the Alien universe. 2122 Alien. 2124, 20 years after Alien, Alien Romulus occurs. Fits in really nice. And then 2179, the greatest accomplishment in the history of...
42.
Yeah, 2142. 2179, the Aliens timeline, the single greatest artistic accomplishment of the human species, Aliens. Magnificent. 2179 Aliens 3 is right on the heels of Aliens, sort of works. And then 2381, the complete pile of dinosaur poo that is known as Alien Resurrection, comes out. So why I'm bringing this up is because in the chronological timeline, we go all the way from 1979, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 7th movie introduces the black goo. 6 movies without black goo. I'm not saying they're great movies. I'm not saying they're entirely consistent. What I'm saying is black goo gets introduced 7 movies into the franchise. And then we double down on Covenant, and then Fede Alvarez has to come in and try and incorporate all of this stuff. It's a very difficult challenge. From the Alien timeline, it doesn't work either. Mm-hmm. Because here we are, Prometheus is all black goo. Alien Covenant, all black, all crazy magic, make up whatever you want, black goo. Then we get an Alien, no black goo, 0 black goo. There's an actual life cycle. Alien Romulus, black goo is back in it again. Also, some new stuff introduced. Apparently, you can put the black goo in a mouse, smash the mouse in a hydraulic press, it'll reassemble itself and then blow up. Never mentioned. The director's cut's going to cover that, I'm sure of it. And then we go to, from 2142 Alien Romulus, now we go to 2179 Aliens. Black goo's completely gone. We have an actual viable life cycle for this organism that makes sense.
Okay, so as a creator who has lifetime experience as a human, and also life cycle and opportunistic experience as a creator.
Okay.
Because they said, cool, you have to write a canon thing.
Yep.
And you were like, cool, I want to pull everything together. I want to make this the most thing it can make sense. How possible or likely is it if there was a moment in the canon where anything goes? What is the right answer there? Do you try to pull it all together? Do you try to like skip off like a stone on a river? Do you hat tip to it and say we didn't understand the science? Like, how is it possible to coalesce a timeline if it has not been managed from the start?
My answer to that question is trilogies are the answer. The answer is you can maintain continuity through a trilogy. You can do wonderful things. You can even hand off a trilogy to 3 different directors, 3 different screenwriters. There's not so much ore that has been mined from the side of the mountain that you don't know where to put the waste product, that you don't know you don't know how to haul it out of there. You can keep it discreet. You can keep it done. So a trilogy, I think, is easily sustainable on its own internal logic. Once you get to the 4th movie and beyond, I do think it's extraordinarily difficult. So my answer is a trilogy and keep it all straight.
Great. That's a great answer. I have a secondary question.
Shoot.
Is it possible for there to be 3 trilogies in the alien universe? Well, wait, hang on. Let me finish the question.
Okay.
Where in between there's an indeterminate amount of time, indeterminate amount of evolution, indeterminate amount of galaxies, indeterminate amount of companies, whatever. Mm-hmm. Like, can you do 3 distinct stories? Well,
this is what
happens. Another 3 distinct stories. Is that possible?
This is what the Star Wars franchise tried to do. Both before it was a Disney property, it was Lucasfilm. They did things in 3s. And when Disney took over, there's still the what they are trying to do is bring in a director to do a trilogy. They tried it with the Game of Thrones guys. That fell apart. They tried it with, who did Brick?
Ryan Johnson.
They tried it with Ryan Johnson. That didn't work because Ryan Johnson's first entree did not go over well with the majority of the existing audience. So, but that's why they do this. Like, let's bring in a team, producers, screenwriter, director. Let's write a trilogy, keep it all internally consistent, and then drop these little 3-movie gems. That's what Disney is trying to do. So people can shit on Disney all they want. Disney has to, as you said, Disney has to sell tickets to 8-year-olds who are going to go in and buy the Charleston shoe and a giant bucket of popcorn and want to go back 5 times with mom and dad and all their brothers, right? That is their customer. That is their customer. That's why the concept is do a trilogy. I get someone coming in at 12. Next movie comes out, they're 15. Next movie comes out, they're 18. And we have delivered this this is an enclosed story that you will treasure for the rest of your life.
Right. So you didn't answer my actual question, though. Is that possible? Are people, if it was 12, 15, and 18, and then they come back at 30 because their 8-year-old kid or their 5-year-old kid wants to see the next iteration?
Yep.
In the Star Wars trilogy or whatever, and you as a 35-year-old are like, this is some bullshit or whatever. Is it possible to go for Disney to go do that? Like, there's magic in between. Can we, as people who didn't get to experience special effects until sort of the 70s?
Yes, good point.
Is it possible for the evolution to be like, cool, we're going to give you 3 consistent, internally consistent things. Then, just like humans, you don't know how the Middle Ages lived.
Yeah.
You don't know what it was like to live with lice and bathe once a month. You don't know any of that, and you don't care. Is it possible for us as humans to be like, cool, my kids want to experience this other thing, and I'm going to be okay with it?
Yes, it is possible, and that is what Marvel and DC have both attempted to do many times. There's a reason we have seen Peter Parker get bit by a goddamn spider 5 times in my life. It happens over and over again. The Spider-Man movies are all sort of trilogies because actors age out And you can only tell a story. You can't have a 35-year-old man trying to portray a 19-year-old dude who's a plucky reporter, right? Batman's the same thing. How many times do we have to see the Batman origin story? Every time a new fucking actor comes in.
I've never thought of that.
So
You
the
have
comic
to
book
at least
movies,
reference it.
the comic book movies have done a better job than Star Wars at like all the comic book guys. If we get Clooney, we're doing 3 with Clooney. If we get Schwarzenegger, we're doing 3. The goal is always to get those guys for 3 movies, and then you start over. Because, again, you see it at 12, you see it at 15, you see it at 18, and by the next time it comes around, remember, it skips. It doesn't go every 3. They bring a new guy when you're 25, and now they're writing movies for a completely different audience than the people who grew up with Michael Keaton.
But I kind of love this because if the movie comes in and I am 25 and I haven't established my adult life or anything like that,
Yep.
I poo-poo it and I say, no, this wasn't Michael Keaton's Batman. This is
That
stupid,
was me, dude.
all that.
I shat on it all day.
Except now I don't care as much because I don't have that same investment in who I was when I was 18 or 25. Now at my age, right? And I don't have children, but if I did, I would want them to enjoy what they were doing. And I might be able to be like, well, this wasn't the perfect Batman, but this is fine.
I will say there is a gender difference here, and you as a 25-year-old woman can say, well, this isn't mine, but it's great. A 25-year-old man spends half of his life shitting on things on the internet. And I guarantee you, when Spider-Man rebooted only the second time after the first 3 movies, Rob and I shat on everything they did all day long. I wanted to get a plane ticket to LA to punch someone in the fucking mouth. When Alien Resurrection came out, I was like, you sons of bitches, how dare you try to make the movie you want? Make the movie for me. And that's why, with all the shit that Star Wars is going through right now, I'm like, yeah, they're shitty. They're fucking 25, 26, 27-year-old dudes. This is what we fucking do, bro. I wish we didn't. I would like to teach them not to. It's not going to change in the next 20 years.
This is a wonderful thing that you're saying, of course, because if you were, and the crazy thing about Scott talking about Rob and Scott and myself is none of us are parents.
Right, correct.
But maybe if you were a 25-year-old parent, either one of you or Rob, you may or may not have had the time to be so offended. You might have been like, okay, bro, I got other things to think about. And I was like, all right, I don't care as much.
If you're a parent, you're like, I don't give a fuck what the movie is. Just shut the fuck up for 2 hours.
Exactly. And this is a weird thing that we are all, life immemorial has not really existed until the internet existed in 2007. So now everything that has sort of been digital since vaguely the 70s is re-experienceable. Mm-hmm. And I've told this story before, but like I took my nephews to see what I'll call in real time, the second 3 Star Wars movies, and was super offended by how terrible they were, and then made them watch the real 3 first trilogy, and they were like, I mean, these FX are ridiculous.
In the chat room, Kyle Jacobson says, use the same universe with focus on different characters seems to work. Mandalorian did so. And I 100% agree with you. I think that you are right that you take a secondary, tertiary character, give them their own series, which Marvel's done a bunch. And to me, they've done an extremely, Scarlet Witch and Vision, wonderful fucking series, right? They do that great. But remember, you can do that and keep doing that, and eventually you wind up in characters that the larger populace doesn't understand. When you have a Darth Vader, when you have a Luke Skywalker, these are characters that have left their imprint on all of Western culture. If you are a business that makes widgets and you have a product life cycle, at some point, you need to make movies with Darth Vader and you need to make movies with Luke Skywalker. If you're not doing that, you're not a smart business, period.
And I will also add, we know this. This is our actual business. If you remain catering to the original aging viewing population, in 1977, we were the teenagers.
Yep.
If you insist that the teenagers that were in 1977 need to be the people who you cater to. I just told you, we never leave the house, and we left the house twice this week, and it was unreal. And so do you as a business cater to the people who see 5 movies a week in the theater, or go out 5 times a week and engage with their friends and spend money? Or do you say, no, I am not going to change anything about the Vader legacy for the person who watched it in 1977, who quite literally hasn't watched a Star Wars movie in 16 years.
Hasn't been in the theater in 16 years, doesn't have the Disney package, doesn't stream, doesn't buy toys.
And only looks at the internet, not at my site, not at Disney Plus now, I guess it is. I don't know what it is now. But looks at the internet at 10-second clips and says, well, in my day, Darth Vader wasn't like this at all, goddammit. I'm not going to spend any money. I'm not going to buy any toys. I'm not going to go to the movies. I'm not going to keep a movie theater in business. I'm not going to do any of that. But kids who don't give a shit about what 1977 Star Wars looked like.
I took a movie making course once, and it was this traveling guy would go from town to town. And it was basically his pitch was, what I'm teaching you how to make a movie for almost no money, but to make a feature. And once you've made a feature, the world is your oyster. Then you can go out and work hard after that. Like here's my ticket to ride the ride. I made a 90-minute feature. And once you've done that, Hollywood will have a meeting with you in the drop of a hat, because that is very difficult to do. But at that point in time, 30 years ago, he was like, your job is not to make a movie. Your job is not to make an art. Your job is to sell sugar and popcorn. Your job is to put butts in the seats. When butts are in the seats, they buy sodas and they buy candy, which have a huge markup, and they buy popcorn, which is a massive markup. Your job is to put people in a theater to sell sugar and popcorn. And now, in this day and age, your job is to sell plastic. Your job is to sell toys. Your job is to sell clothing, merch. Again, you obviously want money.
Fortnite skins.
What's that?
Fortnite skins.
Fortnite skins. I'm going to play Fortnite in a couple minutes. Your job is to create excitement about a character that translates into other revenue streams. Yes, everybody wants to make fucking art. Don't get me wrong. Disney's job is not to make art. Marvel's job is not to make art. Marvel's job is to sell toys. Marvel's job is to sell comics.
Marvel's job is to make money.
Marvel's job is to make money.
Is to make money.
Yep, they make money.
Everybody's job is to make money. And the people who are the target demographic for everything. I challenge every single person who hears my voice right now live, no matter if you're on YouTube and you're a teacher, like my dear friend Pam, if you're on Facebook, like my brother, who is absolutely watching on, no matter what you think your opinion is about Star Wars, Star Trek, or the Marvel Universe, your job every single day is to make that money. And that is exactly what Disney Marvel,
makes that money, dog.
Star Wars, all that. That's what they're doing. And they're not looking at us, because I haven't been out of the house until this week for a month. So they're not looking at me. They're looking at the kids who go out 20 times a day.
So let's bring this to a close. And a movie studio's job is to make money. Their job is to make money. If they can make art while they make money, that's great. If they can honor the legacy of a 45-year-old franchise and make money, that's great too. But job one is to make money, which is why, in that lens, in that context, Aliens Romulus is a spectacular accomplishment of capitalism and also honoring a legacy that came before you and trying really, really hard to make all the fans of all age groups happy. It is an astonishing accomplishment that Fede Alvarez and the whole organization has done. And hats off to Disney for letting them do they control it. Let them do their thing. Let them try and love everyone.
But perfect way to say it. And we've seen this many, many times in our lifetime. As I'm 53 years old, in my lifetime, we've seen it. I will just off the top of my head say we've seen it with Boys in the Hood. We've seen it in Spike Lee's movies, where somebody comes to somebody with money and says, "Cool, I get you. here's how much I've thought about all of this. I've thought about what I want to perpetuate. I thought about what I want to say. I thought about the story I want to tell. You want a mobster movie. I also want to engage all these people who are my peers. I want to do this well. I also will add into the Spider-Verse. I think this has freshened up that timeline and universe very well to be like, cool, now we're anime people. Now we're multiverse people. Now we're going to do this. And everybody wins. You're like, there's a way to do it. And I think Fede Alvarez did.
He's
literally, I don't know how he got in front of the money makers and greenlighters, but I do think when he got there, he had every answer. He had every answer. And some of those answers is, here's what I think, but I have to do some like deep research. And then he came back and they pushed back, just like you said. Okay, I also need you to add Black Goo or whatever it was,
for
right?
sure.
But he was like, cool, I have an answer for that. It's not great, but I have an answer for that.
So,
and I think he did that really well. And I think that's the energy that we kind of need, is somebody who wants to keep the whole legacy alive.
Yes, he loved the legacy.
Because there are so many people.
He loves the franchise. You can tell he loves the franchise.
But there are also people who will watch Alien Romulus, never having seen an Alien movie before.
And now they will watch other ones.
And now they're so excited.
Yeah.
They will dive deep. They will still hate Prometheus. They will still hate Covenant, whatever it is. But they will dig into all of that, which serves the master.
Serves the master. So that's what makes the money.
That's a terrible way to say that. Serves the moneymakers.
Serves the money. You know what? This is a capitalistic industry. Hollywood has always been about capitalism.
I don't want to
always
say
been about making money. Correct. Serves the moneymakers. You know what it serves the money payers.
Yeah.
You have to you have to
better.
make
Yes.
you have to provide a service that makes money for people who make money to want to pay you to do that service.
And keeps
Fede
the
Alvarez
alive.
crushed the shit out of it, despite all my problems with the continuity and the timeline, because I love this franchise like life itself. It is the reason I have a career, literally. He crushed the shit out of it, and mad respect, mad props. What do you think? Mad respect,
Yeah,
Rob?
I think we're kind of done.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we got to wrap it up.
We do. So
I
before
forgot my wrap-up is
serving the timeline, I will just again say, as the kind of admin person in your timeline, today you did a good thing and continued to serve a timeline that you're creating with your co-writer, Rob Otto, and I live to see a day 35, 40 years from now where somebody else bastardizes Slay.
Oh my God. We'll finish up in a second. That's a great point. So obviously Rob and I are going to be pushing for and would love to see, Chris Pratt as Lincoln Franks, for example. Like some A-lister in Hollywood, like, oh my God, I love this. This is great. I want to swear at gnomes who are waggling dildos at me. I would love to do this movie. And then we make the definitive version of Slay. This is the director's cut. This is the ultimate version of Slay. And we get old and we're 80 and then they sell that franchise because it's old. And then some other young whippersnappers come in and make a completely different version of it. I'll be there on red carpet night, dog.
Yeah,
you kids do your thing. Go do your thing.
I'll
that was
get
amazing.
a green dress.
All right. That is it for this episode of Deep Cuts.
Next episode, we will talk about the tools of the trade to create a podcast. If you are choosing to create a podcast, what software you need, what hardware you need, and what esoterics and intangibles.
Yeah, there's a lot of intangibles. So thank you very much for joining us. We enjoyed talking to you all of this time. We are celebrating the completion of my novel Slay Book 2. You are all fantastic.
We are so grateful you stayed with us.
We
will
will
see you next
see
week.
you next time.
Congratulations, Robbie.
Goodbye,
Congratulations,
Rob
Scott Sigler.
Otto. Goodbye. Aliens, Rob Otto. It's a great movie. Aliens, Rob Otto. Goodbye.